Hey everyone, so this is more of a question because I'm facing an issue with core data in child context, and maybe someone can help me out over here. Let me first go ahead and run the application so you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to launch the application. It's a pretty simple app. Oops, where we go? There it is. So groceries category, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to do a long press on cookies ES, which is one of the expense. And I can see the expense and I can now update the expense. Now, all of this sheet, in this sheet, we're passing in a child context and I'm updating this part, okay? Now, what if I go ahead and basically close this out? Even though I didn't really save, the cookies are updated in the context. They're not really saved to the database. So if I go ahead and run this, since we were passing it by reference, so they were updated in the context, but not really saved to the database. So what I'm trying to do is to avoid this part. Like if I open this up and I say over here, ABC, and I don't really press the save button, I just take care of the window. You can see that since it is passed as a reference, it is still updating. So how can I avoid this part? Let me show you what I have. So in the budget details screen, from where we were launching that modal, I have created a edit expense config. You have a config over here, you have a child context. Inside the initializer of edit expense config, I get the expense using the expense ID. And then I create a child context. I assign the child context or parent and then the expense to the existing expense. Now, when I show the actual sheet or the modal, this is where the problem actually happens. So I'm showing the modal based on the edit expense config. So right over here, when you do a long press, we pass in the expense. So I think this is the part that where I'm passing in the expense, and I get the same expense back from the database because we are trying to get the updated expense or trying to update the expense. And then we pass in the edit expense screen, we pass in the expense that we just got it from the database. And then it is binded directly. So you can see right there, expense.amount, expense.quantity. So all of these things are directly being binded on to the text field, on to the other stuff. All right. So this means that even that particular expense that you retrieved from the database, it's the same expense we were talking about. And since it is binding directly to these text boxes, what's going on is that it's directly getting updated. So even though if I close it, those things, since they are passed as a reference, are getting updated. So how can I avoid that part? I mean, I can't really call rollback over here because, this on dismiss will be fired when I press the actual save button or the close button or anytime the sheet is dismissed. So I can't really do that. So how can I avoid the part where it's basically the expense is getting updated because it's binded to the text field, and whatever I type in the text field, it's updated, the expense is updated, and it's not really saved to the database because I still have to call context, the main context or parent context dot save. But, so what will be the solution to this problem?